Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and I'm your host, Adrian Danila. My guest today is Marco Pfeiffer. Welcome to the show, Marco.
Hey, good to see you.
Marco, your title on LinkedIn is Real Estate Investor and Recovering CFO. That's a very, very interesting title, right? And also, you have over there Financial Freedom Coach. I want to start by asking you to walk us through your background.
Okay.
How did you start it pretty much in adult life, and how did you work your way up all the way up to a CFO position?
Okay. So originally I'm from Germany. I was born and raised in Germany, suburbs of Frankfurt, and grew up kind of lower middle class. Grew up in an apartment with my brother, my parents, having shared a bedroom with my brother until I was like 16. And then along the way, got into college in Germany, did my undergraduate there in accounting and finance. And when I was 26, I had an opportunity to go to the US to work for a German company. They basically transferred me over. I started in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That was where my first location, and had never been to the US before. Didn't know anybody in the US, not a single person. And so I just took a chance. It was a chance to go over there. It was a small company, so I didn't have like some nice expatriate contract where they take care of everything. So they basically said, hey, you have a job as a financial analyst, and you take care of the rest. So I had to get my own flight. I had to learn how to get an apartment in the US, how to get a cell phone, how to build credit history, and all these things. And you're a foreigner too, so an immigrant. So I'm sure you can relate to some of the issues that brings it with it. I mean, what I learned is having no credit history is much worse than having a bad credit history. So I mean, it took me like 2 years to get my first credit card, and getting a cell phone was a pretty big deal too. So but I managed it. Unfortunately, that company I worked for 3 years later went bankrupt, so I had to look for a new opportunity. I joined another German company. It's called Siemens, which is a much bigger company, basically a German version of GE, and worked there in the automotive division, initially as an internal auditor, and then later was promoted 2 years later to become a controller for one of their divisions. Just took the corporate route. When I came to the US, I was just working really, really hard. I was working harder than anybody next to me. Working 60, 70, 80 hours. Every vacation, I took my laptop with me. I just went all in, and was rewarded. I mean, I climbed the corporate ladder. And then in 2010, I had the opportunity to become a CFO. My first CFO job was in 2010 for a valve company in Baton Rouge. I should mention I did my MBA along the way. So in 2009, actually in early 2010, I graduated from the University of Alabama with an MBA, which was very helpful to get the CFO position. And just kept doing what I'm doing, just working really hard. In 2014, I switched companies, became CFO of an oil field service company in Houston. So I moved from Baton Rouge to Houston, Texas. And just kept doing what I'm doing. Unfortunately, in 2016, there was 15 and 16, there was a crisis in the oil field. Price collapsed. And in 2016, I was without a job. And at the time, we had a house that was supposed to be sold. We bought a new house just outside of Houston, Texas. 1 week after I got let go, the contract on the house we were selling fell out of contract. And I was stuck with 2 mortgages. And we still had an income. However, it was a really, really annoying feeling, bad feeling, to be stuck with 2 mortgages and just one single income. And I hated it. I hate the feeling in my stomach. I hated every minute of it. And I was looking for ways to build cash flow. My goal was to never ever depend on a W-2 again. It was like, okay, I want to build cash flow, $4,000 or $5,000. I figured that was going to cover expenses, mortgage, food, whatsoever. And so if I ever get let go again, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to be, okay, that's fine. I'm going to find another job, so be it. So in 2016, I went all in. I mean, in hindsight, it was a blessing in disguise. I was unemployed for 3 months, and I was just going all in on real estate. I listened to any podcast I could find. I read any book I could find. I went to any meetup, networking event I could find. I engaged a coach, got coached on investing in real estate. And and then basically when I found a job again, I moved back to Huntsville, Alabama. But then while I was still working, I started investing in real estate, buying rental properties, initially single family. So that was my thing. So I started investing in the Huntsville area, and also the Fort Myers, Florida area, where I believe you invest as well.
Yes.
It's just I love the area, it was just for me a good excuse to go for vacation to Fort Myers, but also believed in the fundamentals of it. I believe in Florida. I believe it's more as is just a booming state, a lot of influx, a lot of business going there. So I believed it was a strong fundamentals, but also love going to Fort Myers. So I killed two birds with one stone and then started investing in Fort Myers. And I just kept doing what I do. In 2018, I became a CFO of a firearms manufacturer, another German company, and in Columbus, Georgia. And but also got into multifamily. So I started buying multifamily initially a 9-plex, and later on a 12-plex, both in Huntsville. And sold those at one point, just getting the gains and reinvest. But whatever I made, whatever I generated out of these, I flipped a few houses. Whatever I did, I reinvested into business, buy more rental properties. And I always measured my cash flow. At any given time, you could have asked me how many rental properties I have. I probably would have to think about it. If you had asked me what's my monthly cash flow, I could have given you the number on the dot. That was just what I was shooting for. I was like getting that 5,000. Then when I reached the 5,000, it was like, hey, I can do more. And I just kept piling onto it. In early 2020, I went into a joint venture with a business partner. We bought our first 40 unit. And then later on with that business partner, I bought an 18 unit and a 36 unit. So that was but all in a joint venture, no syndications. That was my biggest acquisition in multifamily. And then in mid 2020, I was making more money. My cash flow out of rent properties exceeded my income as a CFO, and I decided to retire from the corporate world. So that was the deciding point, September 2020.
So
was, when I called it quits.
So around 2016 you started, right? You started investing. Is that right? Am I getting the timeline right?
Yeah, you got it right. Except I need to say one thing is I had one rental property. In 2019, when I left Huntsville, Alabama, I moved to Louisiana for a job. The house I lived in, I kept it and it turned to a rental. However, at the time, I did not know what I have. So I kept it as a rental. Somebody was paying my mortgage. I was happy. I was making like $50 a month. And I'm like happy. Okay, in 30 years, somebody paid off the mortgage for me. That's great. And unfortunately, didn't buy any other rental properties after that. So I was just enjoying that one property. And that's it. And then in 2016 is when I learned how to scale up, how to leverage properties, how to be more focused on building up that cash flow. So yes, in 2016 is when I really started, but I had one rental property, which in hindsight turns out was probably the best rental property, one of the best rental properties I have, and I still have it today.
So between 2016 and 2020, you still worked as a CFO, and at the same time, you start building your portfolio from one property to whatever the number was, right? So you worked in parallel. You did both for 4 years until in 2020, you felt comfortable enough to say, that's it, I'm walking away from the corporate world and I'm doing this full time, correct?
Correct. Yes. And when I retired, I had 28 single family properties.
Marco, was it something by accident? Was it by design? How did you decide to invest in real estate? You know, people invest in many things, but what made you decide, okay, real estate is gonna be for me? That's what I'm gonna do.
It was something, there were several factors. One was I still was wired to have a corporate career. Okay, so yes, I lost a job, but I want to be back in the corporate. I want to be CFO. I love being a CFO. There's a lot of things that I don't like about corporate, but I love numbers. I love turning around. My niche where I was in was turning around companies. You know, that was kind of, I love doing that. And so I love that part. And for me, I was still wired like, hey, I have to advance my corporate career. I have to go back. But I want to build that cash flow. So I need to find something I can do on the side and kind of passively, you know? I mean, what is the alternative would be buying a franchise or something. I felt like there's still, you have to be involved in that. You have to manage the company whatsoever. Also, when it comes to stocks, you have to buy a lot of stocks to generate enough dividend to live on it, you know? So that was not really an option either. I like precious metals, but they don't pay you monthly cash flow, gold or silver. So it was looking at the different options. It was the most compelling was real estate. And I knew already, I had some experience at this one rental property. So I knew already some of the basics, managing a property, how to kind of refinance it. And so I knew of the basics of real estate investing, you know. Every house I ever bought was a foreclosure or needed some work. Okay, so my way to build up equity was I bought these houses, lived in it for 2, 3 years, 4 years, renovated them, increased the value, and then I sold them or kept them later on kept them as a rental. But that's kind of, so I understand the basics of renovating houses and how improve the value of houses. So it came kind of natural, you know, and I looked at the cash flow for me, it was all about cash flow. You know, how do I get to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in cash flow that I don't have to? What really drove me was this squeezy feeling in my stomach. I didn't want to feel like that. I hated that pain. I didn't want to feel like that ever again. So it was that was really what's driving, and I felt that the best way to do it is real estate. And looking back in hindsight, is the best choice I ever made, the best decision I ever made, and it allows me to live the life that I live today. And so I'm very appreciative of real estate and love real estate.
Marco, I wanna touch on a topic that has to do with everything in society, with the corporate world, with the outside the corporate world. When I first started in United States, when I first got a job, I was told, well, I was with a number of friends before I got a job. They were saying, hey, I need to work 15 more years and I will be retiring and I'll get a Social Security check. And my Social Security letter that came in this year told me that if I earn at this rate, I'm gonna get like $800 or whatever the amount was. So at that time, my first thing in mind was like, hey, you know, I gotta work for 20 years or 30 years, whatever, and I could be making how much these guys make, or maybe a little more. When I got my first full-time job in a corporate world, the chatter about retirement was, 401k is the best thing out there. Go put your money in it, invest, your money will grow, you'll be retiring. So I've done that for about 16 years. And then 16 years later, I got enough of it. I said, either I really suck at investing in 401k, or this is a scam. Whatever the situation is not working for me. So with that being said, and I started to invest in real estate. I cashed out everything and I bought a rental property. That's my story. So Marco, I wanted to ask you, 401k myth versus reality. Talk a little bit about 401k. What's the reality versus how people perceive 401k?
I mean, it's I feel really strong about 401k in a negative way. So I'm more than happy to talk about it. I personally think 401ks are a scam. 401ks, and this is my personal opinion, and it might sound controversial for some, but I look at the results. It's like same to you. It's like how did your portfolio, how did your net worth improve after not using a 401k? I'm assuming it went up, didn't it?
Well, it went up like threefold or something like that in a few years, in a very few years, like this. Of course, the economical situation, like the economy has to be a certain way. You're not going to get it on the downturn economy. But
absolutely, but there's
yeah. But go ahead.
I mean, yes. I mean, there are certain things that to fall. Yes, was I lucky to some extent that real estate appreciated a lot over the last between 16 and 22? Yes, I was lucky, but I put myself in the position to be lucky. Okay, I went and studied. There's millions of other people in 2016 who did not invest in real estate and then invest in for the next 6 years. Yes, I took advantage of it. Yes, it benefited me. However, I positioned myself. When people go I mean, I stopped. I used to. I mean, first, I'm from Germany. I love soccer, so I watched every Saturday morning. I watched German soccer. Okay, that's what I did religiously. Every German, because of the time difference, live German soccer every Saturday morning. Then I went to the University of Alabama, so I watched college football every Saturday afternoon. So my Saturday morning soccer, afternoon American football. Then on Sundays, I watched NFL. I stopped these things. In 2016, I canceled all TV. I haven't watched. I mean, I watch TV when I'm in the gym or something, or when I'm somewhere sitting somewhere. But I personally have not watched TV since 2016. And I went on my weekends. I went to seminars. I drove around cities. I looked for properties. So I positioned myself. I was willing to sacrifice my time instead of just sitting there and watching some football game or something. I was willing to invest my time and learn, do deals, find deals, and position myself to be lucky. Okay, so that's just in general. It's like, yes, I agreed. I got lucky to some extent, but I also positioned myself to be lucky. And coming back to I digressed a little bit. Coming back to your question, 401k, which is kind of related. I personally think 401k is a scam. I think it got designed by the government and Wall Street to basically extract more of the middle class or taxpayer money and funnel them to the big guys. So one thing is why you should question 401k in general is, what can you invest in 401k? Okay, I'm going to work for a company. I put 3% of my salary in. They might match it, so I get another 3% from the company. Let's invest for the future. What can I invest in? So they give you, maybe every company is a little bit different, but in general, they give you like 7-8 mutual funds, 2-3 bond funds, and that's usually it. So they don't. It's not like, hey, you want to invest, and once in a while they might throw in a REIT or something, but that's as much exposure as you would get to real estate. So why can you not invest if it's for my retirement and it's for my money that I'm going to live off if I don't work why can I not choose where I invest in? Why can I not buy real estate with my 401k money? You're very limited. You can only invest in one thing, and that's Wall Street. Okay, so. And then it's all these companies out there. It's a billions of dollars of industry. If all these companies managing 401k plans, doing this, selling 401k plans and whatsoever, who pays these people? Who pays this billion-dollar industry? It's you and me and the people who invest in 401k. They pay for all these bonuses and all these commissions and all these things. So where's that money coming from? It's coming from your returns. So it limits your returns. It's all the things. So everyone's like, it doesn't cost anything whatsoever. But do you think these people work for free? I mean, they have to somehow get paid, and it comes from your returns. They mitigate your returns. And so yeah, that's why I personally think it's a scam, because I can only invest in Wall Street related options, and it's $1 billion industry behind it. They got to live off something. They got to make their money somehow. So they make it of you as an investor. I personally prefer to be in control of my money. I prefer to, I mean, think about it. If you retire let's say you retire at 65, and now you have $1 million in your 401k. So now you got to manage that $1 million for the next 30 years to somehow pay yourself, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000 a year, plus still accumulate interest on it. So you try to somehow manage that, stretch it up, plus you get your Social Security to manage that for the next 20, 30 years. Now imagine instead of that, you own 10 rental properties and they pay you cash flow. They cash flow $500 each by the time you retire. So now you're getting $5,000 every month paid in your retirement on top of your Social Security. You don't have to manage anything. Okay, you're getting that cash flow in, and you know it's coming, and the rents go up. So that $5,000 might be $5,200 for a year, might be $5,500 a year for a year. So you're still keeping up with inflation. So I personally think a rental property is a much better retirement than a 401k or a mutual fund or whatsoever. And also think about the fluctuation. I mean, yes, real estate can drop, but with the exception of 2008, you rarely see more than 2, 3, 4% in drop in valuation. Stock market, yes, it can shoot up 20%, but like you saw last year, it also can drop 20%. So now imagine you retire in 2022. So what you thought, oh, I'm going to have $2 million in my 401k, I'm going to retire. Now suddenly it's only $1.6 million. And you're like, maybe I cannot retire. Maybe I'm going to retire next year. Now I'm going to hope the stock market's going to come back. It might not come back. Then you cannot retire in 23. Now you got to wait for 24. So I personally feel investing in real estate is a far superior vehicle when it comes to retirement. And I think 401ks, as I explained to you, are a scam. So I wouldn't. I'm the same with you. I cashed out. I pulled everything out of my 401ks. I use self-directed IRAs and invest in real estate or real estate related. I not only do rental properties. I also do owner finance. I also do lending out of all of my IRAs. So there's different ways to generate returns out of it in a tax-free environment. And that's the other piece. I even forgot to mention that 401k. Oh, you save on taxes because you take the money out and it lowers your tax liability because you take it out of your salary right away. However, later on, when you pull it out when you're 65, you have to pay taxes on it. And this whole your tax rate is going to be lower when you're 65 than when you're today. So you actually get an arbitrage advantage out of it. First of all, I don't know what the tax rate is going to be in 20 years from now. Okay,
they never go down. They never go down.
Exactly. They go. I mean, the only time they went down was in the Trump era for a year or two. But other than that, they always go up. I don't know what it is in 20 years. You make an assumption that my tax rate in 20 years is lower than it is today or the same. Chances are it's not. And second is why does it have my tax rate to be lower? Why do I have to accept that I make less money when I'm 65? Okay, why can I not make the same money or can make more money when I'm 65? My goal is when I'm 65, I want to make substantially more money than I make today. I'm 47 today. I have 18 years to generate buy more assets, generate more cash flow. I would be mad at myself if I when I'm 65, make less money than I make today. I would be mad at myself. I would consider myself a failure for being in that situation. But here we get taught in society, oh yeah, when you're 65, you're going to retire and then you only live with your Social Security, so you have less income, so your tax bracket is lower. That's just brainwashing people, indoctrinating people. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't want to make less when I'm 65. I want to make more. So That's my answer on 401k.
Next topic, Marco. I'd like for you to talk about debt. You know, why don't you educate us about, the difference between good debt and bad debt? What's the difference? What kind of debt is good, good debt, and what is the type of debt that, we should stay away from?
Yeah, I can tell you follow my LinkedIn post, Adrian. So those are topics I feel pretty strong about it. So the problem is there's different levels of where you are in society. Okay, you're poor, then you live paycheck to paycheck. Okay, and sometimes you live beyond the paychecks. You got payday loans and all these things. So that's one thing. There's really not much. You cannot save much and whatsoever. Then you get into the middle class. And when in the middle class, you make more money, you have a better lifestyle, and you get a better job, and you buy a nicer house, and you buy a nicer car, and all these things. But you're also taught like that is bad. Okay, so like when you buy a house, you should pay off that house as quick as possible. Okay, because and I'm making up a number. I don't know the exact numbers, but they tell you, you buy the house for $300,000, but over 30 years, you pay another $500,000 in interest for that house. Okay. Oh, wow. I don't want to do that. No, I'm not stupid. I'm going to pay off my house as quick as possible because I saved that money on the interest. The bank is telling you, calculates it for you. Like if you pay quicker, that's how much you save. Why would the bank tell you you can pay off your mortgage quicker and how you can pay off your mortgage quicker? Wouldn't it not be in their interest that you pay for the full 30 years? Why would they be interested in you paying off quicker? That's just, those are the things you have to think about. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why would they be interested for you to pay off quicker? So the other thing they don't tell you is that $500,000, it's $500,000 in today's money. That's not $500,000 in 30 years from now, considering inflation. I'm making up number. That might be $300,000 in today's money, So yeah, it's oversimplified to say, oh, you save $500,000. That's $500,000 in today's money, but not. And here's the other thing. Okay, interest rates went up, so it's 7% for mortgage, 6.5% or whatsoever. Why not? If I find something I can generate 10% or 12% return, why would I not take that money instead of paying off a mortgage and take that money and use it for other investments? Okay. So that's in general the perspective on debt, So debt is bad and everybody has to pay it off as quick as possible and whatsoever. In America, not many do it. People are paying for a lot of things and consumer debt and whatsoever, buying nice cars, going to Disney. I just read an article that people go in debt just to go to Disney, and which I think is absurd. But my point with that is, yes, there's consumer debt, and that's bad. Anything that's not generating some kind of income, anything that's not appreciating value, that's depreciating, you should avoid at any cost. Okay, credit cards, I pay off my credit card every month. I don't have any balance on my credit cards. I pay them off. My car note paid off as quick as possible. Anything that's depreciating, anything that's not generating some kind of income, you should pay off as quick as possible. However, if it generates it, that's bad debt. If you use that to buy something that generates income for you, that's depreciating and that's cash flowing, that's what I consider good debt. And with good debt, it's good debt because it helps you to grow your net worth. It helps you to build additional cash flow and whatsoever. And in addition, on good debt, as somebody helps you, so let's say it's for rental property, so somebody else is actually paying that debt for you. Okay, and the other thing you have to consider, I just talked about inflation. As the value of the money goes down over the years, the US dollar lost like 96% of its value since 1913, so it's definitely a depreciating currency. That same applies for debt. So if I have a debt liability of $1 million in today's money, next year that's a debt liability of $900 something thousand, however you look at it. you know, whatever you consider as an inflation rate. So I use actually inflation to lower my debt liability, or I consider inflation to lower my debt liability, which is kind of like what the Federal Reserve does and the US government, you know. I mean, they need inflation as they blow up the deficit. $32 trillion today is not that bad of a deal. It was a bad deal 10 years ago, you know, or 20 years ago. It was like, oh, this is it. We're bankrupt, but $32 trillion, that's not that big of a deal nowadays, you know. So it's the same concept, you know. So I feel, and then you have the problem, you have people like Dave Ramsey who tell you every debt is bad and avoid any debt. And I like Dave Ramsey actually from a perspective of if you cannot balance your checkbook, if you don't live within your means, Dave Ramsey is a great guy, a guy you should listen to, you should follow, great advice. But that's where he should stop. Okay? I help you to balance the checkbooks. Stop. Okay. His investment advice is not good advice. You know, or if you buy a house, pay it all in cash. Why? You know, why not leverage? You know, if I have $200,000 and buy one house, or I use $200,000 and buy 4 houses with $50,000 down, I always buy the 4 houses. You know, because now I'm building equity on 4 houses instead of 1 house. And that, let's say on average, real estate goes up like 4% a year. It goes up 4% if the house is paid up full, or if I have 75% leverage on it. It still goes up 4%. Okay, so, and when it comes to rent increases, 1 house goes up $100, 4 houses go up $100 each. So now I'm getting $400 more in additional cash flow every month. So, so yeah, I mean, I take out as much debt. I mean, it has to make sense. It has to be for a good asset. It has to cash flow. There's certain criteria. I don't buy anything, but in general, I take on as much debt as I can. If the US dollar loses value, why would I not take on debt? You know, so that's how I look at it.
You mentioned cash flow. I know that you're very big on cash flow. That's kind of your main focus. But then tell us about other things that you're looking at when you go to assess a property that you want to buy. What would make a property attractive to you besides cash flow?
I mean, one is obviously the location. So, or actually the state. I start with a location/state. So I would never buy in a state that's not landlord friendly. What does that mean? It's like a state like California or New York, where it's, if a tenant doesn't pay, it's very hard to evict that person. I mean, I know people have properties in Portland, Oregon. They're waiting for 2 years now for their rent payment, and they can't get them out. You know, so this is still a business. And you mentioned cash flow. I need to cash flow to live. I need the cash flow to reinvest. So I would never invest anywhere that's not landlord friendly. Okay, so that rules out like half of the states in the United States. And then when you break it down, you look at states that have population growth, and you look at states that have employment growth. So right now the Southeast sees a lot of population growth and a lot of employment growth. So if you look at Texas, you look at Florida, you look at Georgia, that's where a lot of the growth is right now in the United States. And all 3 of them have landlord friendly. When I say landlord friendly, it doesn't mean like you can take advantage of tenants or whatsoever. I treat all my tenants nice, respectful. However, if you don't pay rent, you cannot stay in my house. It's just not. I'm not a charity. I have a mortgage to pay, and that's my line of business, and that's how I make a living. This is how I buy food is through rental properties. So if you cannot pay the rent anymore, or don't feel like paying the rent anymore, you cannot stay in my house. You can feel free to live anywhere else. You just cannot stay in my house. So that, but if the government, if the state tells that tenant it's okay for not to pay the rent for 2 years, that's just not landlord friendly. You know, so that's why when I say landlord friendly, that's what I'm referring to. So then within the state, you break it down in cities, you know. So I personally, I like Alabama. but I don't like all parts of Alabama. You know, so there's Huntsville, Alabama. There's a lot of growth. I like Huntsville, Alabama. In between, there's smaller rural cities. I personally don't like rural. I mean, it has to have growth. That's why I don't like the rural cities. It has to have strong rent demand. I like Mobile, Alabama, and there's a lot of other cities I like. What I'm saying with that is not every state means you can invest anywhere in that state. It just you still have to be selective within that state. And then when you choose the city, you still have to be selective within that city. So I personally, I mean, you basically go into an A, B, C, and D neighborhoods. You know, A is the high end neighborhoods. B is nicer properties. C is workforce housing, and D is challenged neighborhoods. You know, war zones at times. So I would never invest in D. I don't invest in A because I don't get the cash flow, but I invest in B and C. So that's my area. So I look at the house but if I break it down on the city, then I look for the areas, the B and C areas. And so location is a big driver. And then also the type of houses. I personally like newer homes. I'm not a big fan of 1940s, 50s, 60s built homes. So but there's certain other criteria that go into the equation. But the main thing is probably location and the type of houses.
Marco, the next question that I have for you is, would you name a few things if we have someone right now watching us and they too wanna move away from the corporate world and kind of follow a path of independence, financial independence, what are some very valuable pieces of advice that you would share with them from your personal experience? What should they do practically to get there?
I mean, one is generate as much income as possible. Okay, so that means work your job. Assuming you work in a corporate job, I'm still a big proponent. Work hard and try to climb the ladder, because every time I switched jobs, I got a promotion, I got more salary, and the more money I made, the more money I had to reinvest, the more money I could use to generate additional cash flow. That's how I looked. I was still pushing hard in the corporate world, you know, but with the whole goal, my goal switched from, I want to climb up the ladder in terms of being a CFO of a bigger company, and put that on my chest. It changed to, I want to make more money, even if the company is smaller, if it's less prestigious, I still want to make more money, because the more money I make, the more I can reinvest. And then it's live within your means, you know. So as I made more money, so I'm having my CFO salary, now I'm generating $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in additional cash flow. That didn't mean for me now, I'm going to go out and eat Ruth Chris steaks every night, you know. So it doesn't mean I have to buy me a G-Wagon or something. These are all things I could afford, but I rather took that money and reinvested it. So I live in means. And really, for me, truly, the definition of financially free is when you have your money working for you and your income exceeds your expenses. That's when I consider yourself financially free, you know, because you don't have to go to a job anymore. You don't have to show up at 8 o'clock. But you basically free in terms of your time and free in what you can do with that money you make. And as long as you keep your expenses in check, ideally that number keeps going up, but it's enough to let you live the life that you desire, you know. And doesn't mean, for me personally, it doesn't mean to sit by the beach all day long, you know. I mean, I like the beach, I love the beach, I love margaritas, but I do that for 2 days, I get bored, you know. So financially free, and everybody has different definitions. People are like, oh, when I'm a millionaire, I want to sit by the beach all day long. I think that's boring, you know. I mean, I could do that, but I think it's boring. So, but I still consider myself financially free, but I enjoy what I do. And I love real estate. I enjoy building things. I enjoy building safe and nice spaces. I like increasing my portfolio. So I love what I do. But I do it on my own time, you know.
Speaking of doing it on your own time, what does a regular day looks like for you? A regular day, let's say a regular Monday to Friday day. What does a regular day look like?
I don't really, first of all, I don't live in the Monday to Friday world anymore. For me, any day is as a day as any other day. I mean, there's no, if I have to work on a Sunday, I work on a Sunday. If I don't have anything to do on a Monday, I don't work. So in general, for me, it's not, I don't live in the Monday to Friday world anymore. It's all days are equal. And then it's basically, I got 2 dogs, so I walk my dogs in the morning. And I look for new deals, look for opportunities, invest in real estate. I look for new opportunities. Just recently, when I post on LinkedIn for 2.5 years now, I post quite extensively about my journey on LinkedIn, and I have people reaching out to me. It's like, hey, I love what you're doing. I'm tired of the corporate world. I hate my job. I hate sitting in meetings all day. I would love to do what you do. So a lot of people reach out and ask me to help them, to coach them, to teach them. And out of that, I actually developed a coaching program where I help people in a corporate job to build that cash flow to ultimately retire one day. So I do, so I worked on that idea. So I built this whole thing, but now I'm doing also some coaching during the day. There's other ideas I have. As you can tell, I feel really strong about the education system. I feel very strong about the government interference in things. I feel very strong about us being kind of indoctrinated that, okay, 401k is the way. You have to pay your taxes because you have to pay your fair share and all these things. So what's a fair share of my labor? What's a fair share to somebody who doesn't work of my hard-earned money? So I feel very strong about these things. So I'm actually working on creating a mastermind where I want to invite or bring together like-minded people who want to create financial freedom or have achieved already financial freedom, but all outside of Wall Street, outside of the middle class advice, what you should do, and this is no shade on middle class. I grew up lower middle class. My family, my parents is middle class. I respect it. However, if you follow the advice that you get, penny saved is a penny earned, pay off your house as quick as possible, and all these things, you just will always stay middle class. Like you said, you put money in your 401k and it doesn't really tilt the needle much, So you do all these things you're told to do, but then you reflect on, you see like, hey, there's these millionaires, billionaires. How did they become? They didn't become billionaires by, oh, I'm going to get a good job, go to college, get a good job, get a raise, put my money in 401k. That's not how they became millionaires and billionaires. They went out, they started businesses, they invested, they took out debt. Jeff Bezos would have never been able to build Amazon if it wasn't for debt. Okay, highly leveraged. He went to the stock market, he got all this money. He used debt to create this company. So I feel that's one of the things of what I'm working on right now is building this mastermind or setting up this mastermind of like-minded individuals who seek freedom and want to invest outside of the common beliefs. And I like to travel, so I'm actually in the process right now of planning for a road trip. It's one of the nice things about financial freedom. So I'm probably going to go on the road for like 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. Take my 2 dogs with me, and I can work from anywhere. And I'm just going to do a long road trip towards West, California, maybe even Mexico. We'll see. But yeah, that's what I do. And I live in the South now. I live in Florida, so I live close to the beach, and I love jet skis. So whenever I have time, I right now it's not the best weather, but coming spring, I ride my jet skis quite a bit, and just enjoy life as much as I can.
Marco, how many hours typically you work a day, average, you would say?
It's a little, if on my, what I have on my current portfolio, maybe an hour or two, on what I have. I work a lot on what I built. That's where most of my hours go to. But of what I have, I've automated a lot of things. I'm actually hired myself a VA now, so I have a virtual assistant in the Philippines who takes on a lot of my manual tasks. So free up a lot of my manual interference with things. But even without her, I probably would work 1 or 2 hours on what I have, But then I spend a lot of time on researching, brainstorming, thinking about different things, dual coaching. Now I took on a few clients. So there's other things. My core business is probably 1 or 2 hours a day. And then there's a bunch of other things I just enjoy doing.
So just to recap, basically your current portfolio keeps you busy for, let's say, 2 hours a day. And this allows you the rest of the day to do whatever, you see fit for yourself, whether it's relaxation, hobbies, or to invest in other things that you're passionate about and other projects. Am I saying this right?
Absolutely. You're correct. So that's the beauty of financial freedom. That's the beauty of you choose what you do with your time. You're the owner of your own time. You choose how you spend it. And if I like I said earlier, if I like sitting by the beach, I could be sitting by the beach for 6-7 hours a day. It's just not something I enjoy, but it would be an option.
Marco, for a young person getting ready to enter the real world, they just graduated either high school or college, they're ready to take their first job and just be out in the world, what pieces of advice would you have for them?
I personally, I don't hate the corporate world. It grew on me that there's a lot of things I despised. Sitting in long meetings. I think we have created a culture in corporate where people don't like to make decisions anymore. Because everybody's afraid it's the wrong decision. They get fired for it whatsoever. So what happens is there's a lot of going in circles. These long meetings, and I have sit in so many meetings where you sit there for 3 hours and the only tangible outcome out of it was let's have a follow-up meeting. So it's like okay, we'll just spend 3 hours and we just went in circles. And but so I didn't like that part. However, corporate is still a great training ground. It's still a place where I learned a lot. I learned a lot about business. As I advanced my career, I was part of different talent programs within those companies. So I worked on projects in China and Eastern Europe and Brazil. So I learned a lot about in corporate, a lot about business and whatsoever. So the advice for young people is find something that you enjoy. If it's finance, if it's sales, whatever it is, but make sure you enjoy. Just don't do it because, I think I can make good money in accounting, so I'm going to study accounting and become an accountant. You ultimately you will hate it, so do something you really enjoy, and even if it doesn't pay the most money, just do what you enjoy doing, and then in that job try to excel. Try to go beyond what is asked for. Go to be the guy who goes the extra mile, and advance in your career, because as you advance in your career, it's more salary, more responsibility. You learn more. You become a manager. You learn how to manage people. You learn how to interact with people. So, corporate or W-2 jobs is an excellent training ground. I don't hate it. I just hate some of the things that come with it. But as you grow in the corporate world, as you make more income, use that money to build your exit strategy. Use that money to invest in cash flowing assets, or whatever you invest in, but ultimately, I personally believe it should be something cash flowing, because then with cash flow, you can manage around it. You can manage what your expenses are, how much you need to live on, and then you can kind of target, okay, if I make $6,000 in passive income or rental income is not necessarily passive, but kind of somehow somewhat passive. If you do that, then okay, then I can quit my job. And quitting a job, you still can do other things. You know, you might like yoga and want to be a yoga teacher or something, you know, but now you have $6,000 coming in, and the fact that I have no idea what a yoga teacher gets paid, but let's say it's, I don't know, $25 an hour. That $25,000 is in addition to your income. So you can do what you really enjoy and have that $5,000-$6,000 coming in, you know. So that $25 you're making now is just yeah, I guess icing on the cake then. But you do something that you really enjoy. So that's how I look at it, corporate. I mean, would I recommend someone to stay for 40 years in corporate? Absolutely not. I mean, it's gonna kill your spirit. It's gonna drain you. It's gonna eat you, you know. But I think it's a great training ground for 10, 15 years, and then build the nest egg, build the cash flow, and just do something on your own.
Marco, in closing, I want to give you the opportunity to maybe say something you didn't have the opportunity to say during the conversation. Answer a question you wish I would have asked, I didn't ask. Just wherever you wanna close our conversation with.
I mean, you asked a lot of good questions, and I know I sometimes I didn't address the question right away, so I kind of digress some, you know. But it's just something I feel really strong about it. I think you answered most of it. I mean, one thing is coming back to how to go about this. I really, what I just said, the advice for young professional, I think it's the same advice for the 35-year or 40-year-old. You know, I think if you're not happy in your job, and like, for instance, people reach out to me for coaching, they're all late 30s, early 40s. I mean, it really goes from, I think, 39 to, I don't remember exactly, maybe 44 or something. That's the range. And there's a lot of people, I think, in that range kind of reflect on their life. So they're 15, 20 years into the job. They have another 20 years to go. And they kind of reflect, like, where am I at? What am I doing right now? You know, I'm doing this job that I don't really like, but have the golden handcuffs, so I cannot just leave. I mean, that's one of the things that the corporates kind of, that W-2 kind of hooks you, you know, kind of makes you addicted to it. You know, that paycheck's coming in every other week. And I know for me, when I quit, even though I had all that cash flow lined up, it was such a weird feeling, you know. It's like, because you're used to every other week that money drops in your checking account, drops automatic, bum, bum, bum. And it was a weird feeling not to have that. You know, it was a weird, even though I still had the rent checks and everything coming in, but it was a weird feeling. So I understand people, they just have a hard time to lose, because you have responsibility, you have kids, you have a family, you have a house, and you make probably six figures, or if you make $150,000, it's hard to walk away from that. You know, it's really hard to walk away from that. But your happiness should be worth it, that you at least work on getting out of it, you know, because when you look back, when you're 60 or 65, don't you think, and you never did anything, you just kept working that boring job that you hated because you just, do you think when you look back when you're 65 and you finally can retire, like, man, I wish when I was 40, I wish I would invest in some real estate. I wish I had bought me some cash flowing assets, you know? Or how many people will say, I'm just happy. I worked a boring job for 40 years. I hated what I did, but I'm just happy that now I can finally retire. You know, I mean, who says it? But a lot of people have regrets. So what I would say is just the same advice for the 40-year old as for the young professional starting at 25 is start gradually, build that cash flow. You know, or start a business. It doesn't even have, even if you don't decide real estate is not it. You decide something where you generate some kind of cash flow. You're selling something on Amazon, selling, you're really good in programming, sell a course on programming, or whatever it is. Just start building that cash flow, additional cash flow. Because here's the other thing is, one is you want to be financially free, but also there's no loyalty in corporate anymore. And so you might think you have a great job right now. You might think you're sitting pretty safe. Things can change pretty drastically. I just read that Amazon's laying off 17,000 people. Yes, it's probably not a big number considering how many people they have, but there's 17,000 people who thought, oh, I'm safe. I work for Amazon, one of the biggest companies in the world, one of the most successful companies in the world. I'm safe. Now there's 17,000 people who learned the hard way. There's no guarantee, you know. So I think it's not only the financial freedom, but it's also the what you owe yourself is kind of build some kind of a safety net, you know, have some additional revenue stream, some additional income that if really things happen, if something goes south, that you're not going to be stressed out when it happens.
Marco Pfeiffer, thank you very much, sir, for coming in today. It was a real pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks, Adrian. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it, and I love to connect with other immigrants. There's always a special connection.
Hopefully, we'll do a number 2 later down the road,
Absolutely,
another episode of follow-up. You're telling us about your coaching business, how things are going, and everything. How's everything going in your life?
I will. Okay.
Everybody, thank you very much for watching. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.